Here we go. It's Tuesday morning. It's time for the RotoWire Rundown. My name's Keith Stewart from Read the Line. And of course, I am joined, as always, by my good friend Len Hochberg from RotoWire, senior golf writer there. Len, Memorial Day weekend is behind us. It was somber at times, which Memorial Day weekends can be. And also there was a great, you know, comeback story of sorts with Davis Riley and his win at Colonial. How do you put this past weekend into perspective, and did you do something fun?
Uh, Always doing something fun. Yeah, we had like a big party here with the boys. My son and his friends were over for the end of school. Big swimming party. So
Ooh.
that was fun for the people who didn't have to do all the work. Um, and yeah, the Davis Riley was. I was thinking back to a couple of years ago when Davis Riley sort of burst on the scene in like the
Yeah.
spring of 2022, and he had a number of high finishes, and he just disappeared after that. He just did nothing for 2 years. And what was he, 200 to 1, roughly this
Uh,
past week going in or something like that?
350. 350 to 1.
Okay, well, there you go. And so this was completely shocker. And even when he had a 4-shot lead over Scotty Scheffler, I think a lot of people thought, okay, well, Scheffler's still going to win. And so it was just a complete surprise and good for Davis Riley. I don't know how sustainable this is and how much of a one-off this is. So we shall see. But it was a surprise that what happened there.
I could jump in real quick there for a second. So, Davis Riley was down in the 5K range. All right. He was $5,300, I believe, or $5,200 last week in DFS. And I was looking at Davis Riley. I'd been following his kind of story. He won a year ago with Nick Hardy at the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. So he did have that, but it's a team competition. So I never really put a lot of stock in that. I still go back to this year when everyone's like, oh, it was Rory and Shane Lowry. I said, well, who were the guys that they beat in the playoff? And they can't even remember those guys' names. I said, Martin Trainer and Chad Ramey, those like that's who they were playing against. So I don't put a lot of stock in that team competition, but at 350 to 1, Davis Riley was doing some things lately. He was good in Dallas, and he's a great fit for Colonial. You talk about that spring of 2022 where he was runner-up at Valspar, which is a great comp course for a place like Colonial, positional, tough approach game, good putting, and when he was at the height of his prowess, those were the keys to what made Davis Riley, like a really, really good, PGA Tour player. So I wrote him up last week in Read the Line as a top 40, and I was getting 3 to
Fantastic.
1 on that. And so I just said, and I looked at the number for top 20 and top 10, and then, I had him, like, I was thinking about it to win, but then I had to search so deep for his odds. I said 350 to 1. I was like, Keith, you out of your mind. I said, take him top 40, get the 3 to 1. He's on the way back. We're not going to miss, him hitting, and then all of a sudden, boom, there you go. I mean,
Well,
famous last words. Unbelievable, and I agree with you. Like when he had a 4-shot lead on Sunday, I said this is perfect for Scotty. He's in the last group with him. He'll just reel him in, and that'll be that, right? But at the end of the day, congratulations to him because he is an unbelievable talent. I mean, even when he was a junior and he lost the U.S. Junior to Will Zalatoris down there in Texas. I mean, Davis Riley was just an awesome golfer, and it's great to see him back. And just a wonderful story from what was a tough weekend in golf.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Well, I mean, just an incredible call for you on Davis Riley,
Yeah.
and even at 40 to 1 is pretty darn spectacular. Now he's got a long way before he can match Nelly Korda, but I know you've been following her closely, and we all
Oh,
have to some degree. But she's got a big one coming up this week.
oh, geez. The U.S. Women's Open is out there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, just about about an hour's drive due west of Philadelphia, and just a lovely William Flynn classically designed golf course. And they went there for the U.S. Women's Open in 2015, which was won by In-Gee Chun at 8 under. And you talk about a good test. I mean, only 13 ladies finished the week under par, and now you've got Nelly rolling in there. She's plus 350 from a betting perspective to come in. Their next closest on the betting board is Rose Zhang at plus 1,800, Len, right? So she's like 5x, better on the betting board than her nearest competitor, almost like the Chevron. She's won 6 out of 7 tournaments. I mean, she's lost one time in the last 121 days. How about that? I mean, it's unbelievable, and I guess the one thing I was looking up the other day, I said, she's doing some pretty historic things here. I wonder how much money she's made this year, because everybody makes a big deal about Scotty with his 4 wins and his green jacket and his $20 million in the bank so far this year. So she's got 6 wins and a major because she won the Chevron, the first major of the year. She's got 2.9 million in the bank.
That's crazy. That's
It's like,
crazy. I mean, obviously life-altering money, but just in comparison, it's doesn't seem quite right.
it's crazy, and you want to talk about life altering. I mean, it was almost like country altering as we get into the RBC Canadian Open last year, right? It took 69 years since the last time a native Canadian won the Canadian Open for the men's golf, right? So 1954 was the last time, and Nick Taylor hits that 72-foot amazing eagle putt on the second sudden death hole over Tommy Fleetwood, who was plus 2,500, who may have been on Read the Lines card, who came in runner-up again, but that's neither here nor there. Nick Taylor, he won, set Canada on fire, right? So now it got me thinking, coming into this year, now that like all the weight of the world is off these Canadians' back, what do you think? Can we get a back-to-back Canadian winner? There's a lot of great superstars on the, from Canada on the PGA Tour. I mean, look at Taylor Pendrith a couple weeks ago. So what do you think about that? I had to bring that up to you today.
Yeah. Well, my question to that is, does Rory McIlroy have dual citizenship with Canada? He's the overwhelming favorite. I don't know if he had 6-fold like you were talking with Nelly, but he's also plus 350, I think. And last I saw, and I don't know if who's next. Thagala might be is 18 or 16 or something like that. So
you've got Fleetwood and Thagala right there in the high teens.
Yeah, they're pretty wide gap there as well. Can a Canadian win? Sure. I have a couple in my picks. I know we'll get to them, but it is just incredible. One of the things that make it so challenging. I mean, even though there's 20 something of in the field, it's really, really pressure packed, and the whole country is watching. And it's even more than in some ways, it's more pressure than winning the United States Open, the national championship of the United States. It just seems such a bigger deal to the Canadians because they don't have that many top golfers like the United States does. So can a Canadian win? I have a couple in my picks, but I don't think one will.
Ooh.
Bold pick. A Canadian won't win for the second time in a row. Hasn't happened since 1913, 1914, if you remember.
That one's a little bit past me there, Len. That one dates me a little bit, but or predates me, thankfully. I'll just say this much. There's already 2 Canadian wins on tour this year, right? Nick Taylor, who is the defending champ at the RBC this week, he won at the WMPO, and then you've, of course, got Taylor Pendrith, who won out there in Dallas at the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson. So they've got 6 of them that are under 80-1 with some really strong names there. Corey Connors, Adam Hadwin, Mac Hughes, along with those 2 guys, Pendrith and Taylor. I think they're going to contend, and I think that they're going to come out on Sunday in Canada, and they're going to create just a wild, wild atmosphere there at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, which brings us to my next question for you. Now, here's this golf course. There's only 2 golf courses in Canada that have hosted more RBC Canadian Opens than our venue this week, Hamilton Golf and Country Club, right? They've hosted it 6 times. This will be their 7th. The last 2 have been a lot of fun. They had 2019. They had Rory shoot 61 on Sunday to go to 22 under, and he win by 7. But then the one before that was Scott Piercy, who won at 17 under in 2012. And, it goes back to your 1913, 14 days too as well. So I didn't go that far to kind of think about what was going to happen with this golf course, but they did have somewhat of a renovation since the last Rory win. When you look at this week, what sort of skills were you highlighting in your models in order to build out your, cards for your DFS teams?
It's interesting that Hamilton has been 4 times this century it's hosted, and the scores have gotten better every time.
Yeah.
You mentioned Rory 22 and Piercy 17, and before that, Jim Furyk in 2005 was like 12 under, and then Bob Tway was in the single digits, 8 under maybe in 2003. So it goes to show you that the golfers are getting better, the technology is getting better, and the golf course needed to change to maybe keep up and stay in the rotation. And so here we are, but they did do a major overhaul. There are 27 holes on the property. They use the west and the south 9 for this tournament, and every tee box was overhauled. Every green, they put in an irrigation system, just like at Colonial last week. They've added about 100 yards, but it's still painfully short at under 7,100. It's a par 70. I don't know if I don't know how much of a defense there is in place at this golf course to stop maybe another 22 under. There is golfodds.com has the over under at 18.5. They're usually pretty good at these things, better than me.
Yeah.
But the course is not long. There are some very penal bunkers. They took out some trees, so it's a little wider in spots. The greens are about 6,000 square feet, not small, 11, 12 on the stimp, not fast. So I think it's really basically a second shot golf course. Get it in the fairway, get it close, make putts. I think we're looking at birdies this week, guys who can putt well. The putters in 2019, you look at the top 10 on the leaderboard, just about everyone was in the top 10 in putting. It really turned into a putting contest in a lot of ways. And I would expect a similar tournament again this week. And that's how I build out my lineups and build out my picks, by who can really get the ball in the hole.
I mean, that's a completely sufficient summary right there. The only thing I can add is that, on approach, it's kind of unique that there's those two poles. 40% of the approaches are coming from under 150 yards, which is a wedge for these guys. And then you've got about 30% of them coming over 200 yards. So there's a couple long par 4s, and then you've got those 2 par 5s that they try to hit in 2. You mentioned the putting. I'm definitely focused on putting this week. It is a bit of a putting contest. And the other thing I'll say is that Harry Colt, he's done a lot of great designs overseas. And this particular one, the green complexes are unique. There's short grass, there's long grass, there's a bunch of bunkers surrounding them. So there's elevation changes on this golf course. So I just think that you're going to need some scrambling savvy. There's also 3 par 4s that are under 400 yards. So those are the type where these guys just bomb it down there and they get to 30 yards, and then somehow they always pitch it to under 6 feet and score. So those are the 3 keys for me. It'd be the putter. It would be a little bit of short game, and probably more so than people are giving it credit for, knowing that Rory won there before and Scott Piercy, who tend to be longer hitters. And of course, the approach game is what's going to lead to all those birdie chances for sure. And, it's tough to get away from the fact that, much like the Nelly conversation, it's like, how do these people not win? How did Scotty not win last week? I mean, he gave a couple shots to the field on the first day, and he still put himself in the final group come Sunday, less than 48 hours later. It's pretty incredible. Rory sitting there at 4-1 or even a little bit less. He leads the pricing, which I started thinking about that. When Scotty's sitting there always at like 3-1 and he's 13-3 on the DraftKings board, Rory's 4-1 this week, but he's only 12-1. Did that catch your eye? Am I looking into that the wrong way, or what do you think about that? And what do you think about for the names that start up in that 10K range?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on there. There's definitely an aura about Scotty Scheffler these days, where he was winning, and I don't know if all the numbers that they put into their computer to come up with 13-3. I don't know if there's any thinking, well, with what will people do with Scotty? Something that maybe you can't quantify by punching it into a program or something. But I do think that Rory is a little bit underpriced this week, and with the prices going into the 5,000s again this week, as we will now see most weeks, I guess. He's very playable, and you can still field a formidable lineup with him in there. So I think he is a bit underpriced. and I do have him on my list, and it would not surprise me, and I think he will be there, getting major minutes on TV on Sunday. There's only 4 guys in the 10,000s or above 10,000, and the others are Thagala and Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood. And really, you could make a case for any and all of them. They are good. They are good fits for this golf course, I think. And this is not a strong field. We've got two signature events and a major coming up the next 3 weeks, and we are just 2 weeks removed from a major. There is a lot of downtime right here. This is not a great place on the schedule for the Canadian Open. So I really do like all of them to some degree. I wrote up 3 of them. I left Fleetwood out because I just didn't feel right putting in everyone. That doesn't really make much sense or help anybody. But I do like Rory and Thagala and Lowry a little bit more than Fleetwood.
Now, down in the 9K range, it seems to be all the conversations are about Alex Noren. But I also noticed Sam Burns snuck in there too. Where are you going in 9K land?
Yeah, I looked at Sam Burns and I wanted to pick Sam Burns because when he gets hot with the putter, and we know he's a great putter when he's putting
Yeah.
great, he could really do damage here. But he's just been having such an inconsistent year. I mean, his season was so front loaded. He started out in January and maybe into early February, had a really bunch of good finishes. He just hasn't been playing great since then. So I wanted to take him, but I couldn't do that. I do have Alex Noren in there. He's probably going to be the second most high owned guy behind Rory.
Oh,
Rory probably will be number 1 across all of DraftKings universe, but deservedly so. He got to 21 under at the Nelson, so we know he can get there. He's really exceptional at the shorter par 4s, the under 450 yard par 4s. You mentioned that there are 3 under 400. Well, 9 of the 12 are under 450.
yeah.
And Maverick McNeely, I like in the 9s. His approach play has not been great this year. It's really been the one weakness in his game, and that's a bad one weakness to have if you're a professional golfer. But
Yeah.
but in this weak field, he's probably about a top 50. I think he's top 50 in approach play, which still isn't great, but with the rest of his game, he might be able to make a dent on the leaderboard.
Well, he's got the putter. Matt McNeely could always roll the rock. So, he's someone that we should look at seriously. Now, we get down to the 8,000s, and here come the Canadians, right? We've got Hadwin, Hughes. We've got your defending champion, Nick Taylor. Where are you going in the 8,000s?
Yeah, the top 2 Canadians on the board, Corey Connors and Adam Hadwin, and I'm not going to go with either of them. Connors just does not do it from 100 yards and in. I mean, he's got to start dunking his approach shots. I think that would be my recommendation for him. But so I don't know. He's had some good finishes in Canada, but I just think his putting and we talked about the putting at Hamilton. And Adam Hadwin has not been putting great this year either, but Mackenzie Hughes has and always has been a great putter. He's maybe the number 1 putter in this field right now over the last 24 rounds or so. He's played his best golf over the last few weeks as well. And not that this really matters too much, but he was 14th here in 2019. I don't know how much relevance that has. And my other guy in the 8,000s is a guy who has burned me the last 2 times I picked him, Akshay Bhatia. He's missed the cut the last 2 times. And I don't know if this is just a little blip in his season or if maybe he's getting tired over the course of a long season. I mean, this has been playing a lot, and he had that win, which takes a lot out of you. And we'll see. But I'm on him once more again this week because I think he just fits so perfectly for this. But sometimes guys get tired and their season crumbles, and we may be seeing that. I don't know, but we'll know more about Bhatia after after Sunday, and hopefully not after Friday.
Well, it's interesting to see him struggle recently because he went on that approach run there in late March into the Masters where he was just incredible. Of course, he got the win, but if you look back at those stats, I mean, the guy was stellar. It was unbelievable. Down in the 7K land, we talked a bunch about this last week. There was a lot of win probability down in 7,000s, and it seems like they're there again this week. Again, they're not the strongest fields. So we get some names down here that really carry some value. Who gives you the most value down in 7,000s?
Yeah, couldn't pick just one Canadian, so going with Taylor Pendrith,
Yep.
and I not just because he's Canadian, he is 12th on tour in putting. He is 31st in birdie average. He, has been playing well, obviously, so do like him. Ben Griffin at 7,500. A fake Ben Griffin started following me on TikTok this week. Almost had me snookered, almost had me responding. He was messaging me. And that's not why I'm taking the real Ben Griffin. But he does have two top 20s in the past month. And he is top 20 on tour in strokes gained putting. And lastly, Rio Hisatsune. Right now, if the playoffs
Huh.
started today, he would not be in them. He's 90th right now. But I think some of his numbers are better than his leaderboard, than his scoring. And that tends to balance out over the long haul. And he's had some very good results over the past month. I think he's had a couple of top 20s or top 25s in the past month or so.
6,000s. Starts with Luke List, goes all the way down to Captain Zach Johnson, if we could still call him that, right? Who's on your list for the 6,000s?
S.H. Kim, top
Oh, yeah.
25 putter,
Okay.
leads the tour in birdies, total birdies with 249.
Huh.
Now, he's played 18 times, and they tend to be lesser tournaments and more birdie fests. So let's take that with a grain of salt. But not everyone else who's doing that is getting to 249 birdies so far. So you've got to be able to fill up the cup this week. Mac Meisner, he was not on my radar, and I looked, and obviously he finished fifth last week, and so I started to look at him, and he had a couple of other good weeks in the past month, and
Yeah.
he is 36th on tour in strokes gained tee to green, 18th around the green. You mentioned that scrambling will come into play this week. It will. So I do
Definitely.
like him. And Martin Laird, who was in the 5,000s last week, we had him last week. He made the cut. He finished 37th. Not bad. Not Davis Riley good for a 5,000, but you're looking really for someone to make the cut. He would have been a top 40 if you played him. And I do like him. He's up at 6,000 this week.
I do a live show on Wednesday afternoons, and they always ask me for 6K and 5K guys. My two 5K picks last week were Martin Laird and Davis Riley. Life was good in Colonial.
Nice.
Life was good. Yeah, for sure. But we're down there and we're talking about these guys. So, I mean, I don't know if we'll get another guy in 5K land that wins all year, but sometimes we need them if we're going with Rory and Scotty and those guys, those names at the top of the list. So, who are you featuring in 5K land up here north of the border?
Two guys, 5,900. Chandler Phillips,
Sure.
36th on tour and approach, makes most of his cuts. I mean, that's really what we're looking at this week. I always take it. Let's try and get to the weekend and hope from there. As I like a guy who can make some cuts. And at 5,600, Henrik Norlander, not for the faint of heart. He's made only 7 starts on the PGA Tour. They've been in opposite field events, lesser events, but he did get into the Nelson a few weeks back, and not a lesser event. There was a representative field there, and he did make the cut there. So two guys, Phillips and Norlander.
Norlander, just an excellent approach player. He's had a lot of good just a really good ball striker in my memory. He's had a lot of good starts over the years at Torrey Pines and on very difficult golf courses. So I do like that because accuracy, I think, is going to count this week. And one of the reasons why I'm picking the Irish Bear as my first lean of the week when it comes to the betting lines. I like Shane Lowry at plus 2,500. His number is fluctuating in and around there. He was second in 2019 to Rory McIlroy. I guess he was playing in the B flight since Rory won by 7. But at the end of the day, this guy, his ball striking has been incredible all season. He just hasn't found the putter. Well, he popped at the PGA. He gained 9 strokes. And then someone said, well, maybe he just got along with Valhalla. But if you look back to 2019, he gained almost 8 strokes putting here at Hamilton. And there's a little thing, with Harry Colt. Harry Colt designed some of the courses in the Rota that are used for the Open Championship. He designed last year's Royal Liverpool, but he also designed Royal Portrush. And I'm not sure if you remember in 2019 who won that Open Championship, Len, but I do, and that was Shane Lowry.
Good
There's something
call.
about the way that he sees that layout that he likes. And he's striking the ball beautifully, and he's coming off a very hot week with the putter. So for me, I think it makes all the sense in the world. And then the second guy is that I'm going to go with a Canadian. I'm going to go with Mac Hughes. And I go back to that 2019 leaderboard once again. And yes, it was Rory at the top. And yes, it was Shane Lowry. But after that, you had Webb Simpson, Matt Kuchar, and Brandt Snedeker, right? These are those plotters. I mean, even back, Tway won in a playoff over Brad Faxon, right? So, what are we talking about here? We need a guy that can scramble, that can putt, and that can hang around all week. And of all the Canadians, at this point, Taylor won, and he's probably on that President's Cup team. These guys are ultra motivated to be on that Mike Weir Royal Montreal international team, right? And he's only going to be able to take like 3 or 4 of them. Well, Pendrith won and Taylor won, so they're probably on there. But if these guys don't do something special this week in Canada, if Mac Hughes doesn't push the envelope or Adam Hadwin, I mean, they could get left off that team. And I think that level of motivation far outweighs the pressure to just win because they're not going on 70 years. Because Nick Taylor let the air out of the bag last year when he won, right? So now it's like, okay, well, back-to-back is more fun to say than it is like you haven't won this century. So I feel like Mac Hughes is in a position as the number one putter, the number one scrambler in the field, and somebody that really kind of suits this type of golf course and can really score. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a scoring fest. It was raining earlier in the week up there. Conditions they're perfect, but they're soft. I don't know if they're Valhalla soft, but I think that these guys are going to push, high teens under par. And for me, those are my 2 early leans going into this week up in Canada.
Yeah, and I didn't really connect the dots. I mean, Shane Lowry's maybe one of the top 3 or 4 golfers in the field, but to get that quality of player in that field at 25 to 1 does seem like a real good deal. You sometimes see guys at 16 to 1, 14 to 1 of the 3rd or 4th choice in the field. So 25 to 1 seems fantastic.
Well, I had Tommy Fleetwood last year at 25 to 1, and he lost in that playoff after he gagged the darn thing in regulation on the 72nd hole. So, I can't go back to him at less odds north of the border. And he's had some great success up there, but I feel like Lowry's a good fit. The Harry Colt line, it all makes sense to me. And he's got some serious win equity. And I think he's one of the few guys in the field that if he was paired with Rory, he'd be less bothered by that. Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And
Absolutely.
I think there's something to be said for that because, Rory's won 2 of the last 3 Canadian Opens. So, I mean, he could be ready to go nuclear again. And he's won 2 of his last 3 starts. So, he's coming in with some serious mojo. And as long as his social life, doesn't get him off track this week, I mean, he's definitely the man to beat. There's no doubt about that.
It seems to may have had the opposite effect to get him on track.
Well, I don't know what kind of social statement that is, but we're going to skip over that and we will just, we'll wrap it up this week on the RotoWire rundown from there. Good luck. Good luck to Nelly and Rory. I mean, they're huge favorites this week and it's good for golf when the folks that attract the news, Nelly's taken over right where Caitlin Clark left off in April. I mean, these wins have been unbelievable. I mean, think about that. She's only lost once in 121 days. I mean, it's incredible what she's been able to do. 6 wins and 7 tries. So let's cheer her on this weekend. And, wherever you stand on the Canadian Open, you can go there too. On behalf of Len Hochberg, I'm Keith Stewart for the RotoWire Rundown. We'll see you in a week. I'll be at Memorial, Jack's place, drinking some milkshakes. And I'll talk to you then there, Len.
Have a great week. Safe travels, my friend.
All right. We'll talk to you 11:15 a.m. my time, 8:15 p.m. Pacific time for Len. That's the rundown. See you in a week, everybody.